Hello and good afternoon, everyone. It is 3 o'clock in Greece and 2 o'clock if you are connecting to us from Central Europe. You are connected to Cedefop, and this is our European Year of Skills virtual get-together on greening VET. My name is Jasper van Loo and I work as Cedefop as coordinator in the Department for VET and Skills. Now, before I give the floor to our Executive Director, Jürgen Siebel, who will open this virtual get-together, I have a couple of housekeeping rules to share that will also appear on your screens now. First, if you have not done so, please name yourself, first and last name, and country or organization. Second, cameras are automatically disabled and you will be muted throughout this meeting. We invite you to use the chat function in Teams and Cedefop social media channels to interact with us. You can also use the chat to contact our support team should you experience any technical problem. At Cedefop, we take continuous improvement seriously. At the end of the event, we will ask you to take 2 minutes of your time to complete an online evaluation form. We will share the link in the chat. And finally, this event is being recorded so that people who were interested to join today but could not make it can watch it via our YouTube channel afterwards. With that, I would like to hand over to Cedefop's director, Jürgen Siebel. Jürgen, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Jasper, and welcome also from my side. It's a great pleasure to welcome so many of you in this European Year of Skills virtual get-together today. We are pleased that many of you have joined us from EU countries, but also from one of the more than 15 countries outside Europe, and this is truly much appreciated. Today, we tackle a vital issue for vocational education and training. We will talk about what it means and takes to make vocational education and training greener. As not every one of you may know, let me start by saying a few words about ourselves. Cedefop is the European Union agency that supports vocational education and training and skills policies and their implementation. From our premises here in Thessaloniki, Greece, we work for the whole of Europe and with the European Commission, with the EU member states, with social partners, with civil society, with other EU agencies and institutions, and with and for the vocational education and training sector. We are in the European Year of Skills, and throughout this European year, we organize these virtual get-togethers to put our evidence on VET, on skills and on qualifications onto the table. And we discuss trends and challenges with you, an audience of policymakers, practitioners, experts, sectoral stakeholders, and many other partners from all corners of Europe. So let me say a few things about greening vocational education and training. For us, greening labor markets and jobs and looking at skills and training necessary to do so, that is all not entirely new. We've been doing this kind of work and working on these topics for almost 15 years. And this actually coincides pretty much with the time in which we all have seen that climate change is becoming the most pressing challenge to humanity. At Cedefop, we take a unique perspective on greening. We do so by providing insights into the labor market transitions and skills needs linked to greening. By mapping what the green transition means for jobs and for skills, we contribute evidence that supports implementing the European Green Deal and other sustainability initiatives. We strongly believe in people as green transition drivers, and we champion their skills, their opportunities, and also look at the means they need to become part of this transition. And of course, it's no surprise, vocational education and training, and not only for young people, but also for adults, plays a key role here. So today's virtual get-together actually has 3 parts. We start with an overview of Cedefop work on greening vocational education and training and skills. So you will have an opportunity to ask questions in the chat. And we will then continue with a roundtable discussion with experts that will each touch upon aspects of greening vocational education and training. So here we will learn more about how to benefit from the enormous potential of vocational education and training in the green transition. And then we end with a quick wrap up and hopefully close this virtual get together at 3:30 Central European Time. I now pass the floor to Cedefop expert Stelina Chatseristou. Stelina leads our work on the green transition and will give you an overview of our latest key findings in this area. So, Stelina, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon from me as well. We are indeed very excited to have you all here in this virtual get-together. I'm going to share my presentation. I hope you can see it's full screen. As noted by our director, we are working on understanding the implications of the green transition on skills and jobs, particularly for greening vets. So what are the responses that vets should make, and what are the specific elements that we need to change? As I will show, we have progressed and have made significant analysis on various areas, but it's still a learning process. So this presentation, and if I may say, this whole event is about us sharing with you Cedefop's knowledge and expertise, but also hearing from you as well. Therefore, you will please allow me to get your input in a few questions through Slido. My kind colleagues may have already included the link and the specific event number in the chat. You can also scan the QR codes displayed here next to the question. When you do link, please keep it open because there are a few more questions during my presentation. So first of all, I would like us to share between us about how attention and progress you think there is for greening vets in your context, which can be your country, your sector, region, your company, whatever you are working for and at. So I think that, yes, we see already some trends, if I may say. I will leave it a bit more open. It's just to get some ideas. It is quite encouraging that the majority says that there is some attention or almost a lot of attention, wow, gaining ground, and there is room for improvement in terms of progress. And here is where we see a role as an EU agency, but also hearing from you relevant stakeholders. So we'll keep in mind these outcomes in the next slides. So what do we do in Cedefop for those that may not have come across our work? What do we do to understand the trends and developments in the labor market, and specifically also regarding the green transition? We develop and use skills intelligence, which means that we blend quantitative with qualitative information from various tools and methods in order to identify the trends and translate them into messages that would be useful for our stakeholders. And as you can see, we use an array of different methods and tools from our EU skills forecast, a well-established one, sectoral skills foresights that we run specifically for identifying trends in the green transition, qualitative research and analysis, and we also benefit from insights from us, Cedefop's analysis from online job advertisements, as well as the expert groups and networks that we consult. You can find all our relevant information and material on Cedefop's Green Observatory. So where do we stand regarding the green transition? Which are the occupations? Which are the skills? Let's first start at seeing what Cedefop's evidence highlights as important trends. We started already quite soon after the European Green Deal was launched with a skills foresight scenario, where it was made evident that the green transition is a job growth engine. So there is significant potential, but the employment benefits will not be, let's say, equally distributed across sectors. There are sectors that could boast more employment growth, such as energy, construction, but at the same time, there are sectors where we already see and is expected to be facing more, let's say, challenging situations regarding employment, for example, some sectors of mining. But one of the most important outputs of that scenario were the indirect employment effects, benefits that are expected in sectors such as ICT or real estate, service-based sectors driven by the green transition. And this has a direct effect in the way that we perceive the green transition, the skills and the occupations necessary. So particularly for vocational education and training, already we saw the need to, of course, provide training across workers, exactly because the green transition penetrates across the economy, but at the same time identify occupations such as the one called spheroids. Keep that in mind. We're going to come back to that a bit later. The workers that will have to make a transition from the so-called brown sectors to more greener options, and also for the younger generations, the younger learners that will enter initial vocational education and training and will be expected to fill in positions in the future. So exactly because the green transition now is not limited to sectors that are more, let's say, on the front line, on only energy or only construction, this has an impact in the way that the skills are perceived. If we can remember in the recent past, greening environmental policies were mostly, if not exclusively, focusing on the reduction of, let's say, CO2 emissions. But now that we are fostering in the EU a more circular approach to, and let's say, shifting away from linear production and design to more circular approaches, this also affects the way that skills are perceived. So we're not talking only about green skills that could be considered only technical and job-specific ones, but there's also transversal skills that are of great importance. And here, as an example, I provide the key, let's say, groups of skills that were identified from our sectoral foresights, where you can see that it's not only production and, let's say, process design skills, but also strategic skills, digital skills that definitely highlight the linkages with digitalization and the fact that we are going through a twin transition, and communication skills, because we need to engage with the communities, but also with employees. And I would like to draw the attention to two sets of skills that were highlighted in our foresights. The one regards empathy, which means a more anthropocentric approach to how we design and produce services and products, but also systems thinking, which means that a more circular mindset, a more circular economy and society demands that more elements are taken into consideration, not only direct personal or, let's say, corporate benefits, but we should consider what are the expectations and what could be the implications for the community or even the wider area, the society, etc. So one can say, okay, we have identified the skills, so this is it, we can identify the key occupations. Well, it's not always that straightforward, because identifying, again, the green occupations is impacted by the fact that now the green transition is more broadly defined. So in the past, it was more easy to say, okay, in order to reduce CO2 emissions, these are the tasks, and therefore these are the, we can call green occupations. But now we are looking at a more broader approach. One could say, yeah, but there are already classifications for occupations. Why can't we use them? We have developed recently an analysis called From Green Innovators to Green Minds. I really welcome you to read it to see the analysis of why the classifications that can be outdated is not the optimal way to go. To overcome this obstacle, what we have done in Cedefop is to develop an element of greenness. So greenness means that based on the analysis of online job advertisements that we benefit from, one can identify tasks and skills relevant to the green transition within a job advertisement and not judge an occupation only by its title. What is interesting to see here is that for the specific time where this data represents, we see that there is almost half of the advertisement regarded highly skilled occupations for advertisements that regarded skills with high green intensity. But it's not always black and white, and I think the financial analysts are a good example because they are an occupation that has a variety, a wide range of tasks. Not all of them linked to the green transition, but sometimes it is because they can support companies identify what are the needs to adhere to regulation or how to make a more circular approaches, etc. So as was shown by the analysis, by Cedefop from online job advertisements. Sometimes in some countries we see that there is a significant share of skills requested by financial analysts that are linked to the green transition, but not always. So in order to see, okay, which are these occupations, again, I humbly ask for your input. If you hadn't joined Slido before, please do so, again, using the link and the hashtag with a number of the event. So which occupations do we think are more important for the green transition in terms of levels of skills? Is it highly skilled, like say engineers, medium skilled, more technician profiles, or low skilled, for example, refuse workers in waste management? I see responses coming in slowly. Very good. I see that the medium-skilled occupations, the technicians are considered more important. I just want to see the trend. That's quite telling. And what about? Oh, some of you were proactive already. So where do these people usually work for? Are relevant to technologies, frontline, digital roles, management? Again, so we see that it's the medium level and more linked to green technologies and frontline positions. Well, according to our work, thank you for your inputs, it's all types of jobs, because what we saw from the sectoral foresight, and we believe it's relevant across sectors, that it's a quite varied sets of occupations that are very important for the green transition because they serve different roles. So the frontline green jobs is more, let's say, easy to understand, the ones that work with green technology, but the managers is also important to direct, let's say, businesses and take decisions and have now a more circular approach and mindset. The digital specialists, of course, highlight the twin transition, but what we call green hearts and minds, I would like to highlight again, because it definitely stresses the importance of making the green transition, which can be considered a revolution in some aspects, also a bottom-up approach. So we need to engage with the citizens and the communities, we need to engage with employees, we need to engage and train people in sustainability, waste management, etc. I give a brief example from what were the specific occupations identified for the cities in our foresight, and as you can see, it's quite different profiles. So it's not only focusing on one type of profile or the other. But so what about the levels of skills? The majority of you said it should medium level skills are more important, and our foresight, our more recent set of foresight, highlighted that up to 2035, there's definitely a trend for skills upgrading. So there's going to be more job openings for people with high skills. Does this hold also for the green transition? Well, our research and analysis already highlights that indeed there is increased demand for highly skilled occupations relevant to the green transition. Just for illustrative reasons, I include here data, again, from our online job advertisement analysis, where you see that there is increase for professionals working in renewable energy occupations. But not only, as you can see, there was increase also for technicians and craft and trades workers. And one, looking at the professionals, we can see the demand. This is one of the great assets of online job advertisements, delving into the specific occupations up to some level and see, which are these occupations. And as you can see, there are employment shares that are quite, shares of job openings that are quite small. So one could wonder, should we invest in these occupations? Should it be a priority when we are talking about decisions that need to be made at stakeholder level? At Cedefop, would say yes. These are occupations that may be very small in employment shares, that we expect small changes in their employment shares, but they are indispensable in making the transition happen. And these are usually occupations that drive the green transition because they're very much linked to green technologies, in inventing, designing the infrastructure, but also it's people that support the implementation of these technologies, of these changes. And exactly because they are small but very, very important, we call them thyroid occupations or niche occupations. At the moment, we are delving into the analysis of some of them, and what we see is that their employment demand is definitely expanding, and we see that if we could group, there's two types of skills that are requested from them: the technical ones, more linked to technology as expected, but also transversal ones, which highlights the fact that more and more these people work in teams and they need to communicate with others and explain. So it's a very rich skills profile that needs to be taken into consideration. But going back to, if we said, is there really a choice? Definitely high-skilled occupations do play and will play a crucial role, but the middle and low-skilled workers do have an important saying in the green economy. Not only because we saw the technical profiles and how they are relevant across sectors, but also let us consider the fact that low-skilled opportunities in some sectors, for example, waste management or refurbishment, can also serve the just element of the transition. What we are aiming in the EU is not just making the transition, is to make it fair, is to make it inclusive. And these vulnerable groups, such as low-skilled workers, could be included in the transition exactly by having jobs that are greener, that serve the circularity approach. And from all this analysis, one can say that we are asked to do a skills revolution. We are asked to highlight, let's say, that what are the ways that vocational education and training across types, across levels, can meet these goals, can identify the needs of the specific occupations, of the skill types, and serve the goals of the different learners, of the different workers. The role of vocational education and training is already identified and acknowledged, because if you consider, for example, the sectors that were mentioned that were important for the green transition, that are also stressed from the European Industrial Plan, these are sectors, for example, waste management, that rely on profiles that usually are served by VET qualifications at these skill levels 3 and 4. The focus, however, should be on, we believe in Cedefop, on two strands. The one is for VET to really put out the fires that are already started in some sectors, in some countries, in some occupations, regarding the change that is already taking place or will take place in the short term. There is need for upskilling. There is definitely need for understanding the immediate, let's say, developments at some sectors and occupations. And therefore, the VET system, the VET policies need to run a sprint. But at the same time, the same stakeholders, all of us, we should also try and start building a longer term, a more strategic perspective towards VET. Because, as said earlier, we are not just talking about meeting some quantitative goals that are included in an EU regulation, which is of course very impactful. We are targeting at changing the way that we operate, the way that we design, that we consume, that we think. This is a more circular economy, but also circular society. And there, VET with some unique traits can definitely support the societal and economic transition by ensuring that it can run a marathon. And how can we prepare for that? It can be two different types of trainings, running for a sprint, but for a marathon. This means that some VET systems in countries and regions may need to adjust, may need to change, may need to become more reflective, more responsive, more inclusive in terms of stakeholder partnerships. The provision of VETs should also be adjusted to the needs of the learners. For example, in terms of duration, short training modules or micro-credentials that are going to be a significant part of the panel discussion. We see also more and more the needs and actually the efficiency of VET pathways that have proved efficient in the past and continue to do so, such as apprenticeships. And the fact that VET has a strong work-based element is one of the traits that are considered quite important and effective in supporting people making the green transition happen. The fact that we need to focus and provide people with the technical and job-specific skills and digital skills, because again, we should not forget that we are talking about the twin transition, is undeniable, and definitely programs, or new ones, existing ones, need to reflect that. But at the same time, there is also the need to include elements and skills that are more, let's say, transversal and soft, such as empathy. In order to do so, in order to design, in order to innovate, what do we need? We need evidence, we need information. And there is where green skills anticipation comes in, which means a way to anticipate the trends, to anticipate the developments, specifically for the green transition, using tools, using methods that are already in place and can actually be translated later into messages for VET policies. I'm coming to a conclusion. We saw here that there's the mega trends and that we are working under and in, but the green transition is definitely one of them, and it does create some challenges. In order to move forward for the short term and the long term, Cedefop believes that it's important to adhere to perma-skilling, which means that we definitely need to provide people with the right skills and the right training, but we also need to ensure that the jobs offered are of good quality, that people can use their skills, that people can develop. And it's also very important to realize that all this complexity can be really revolutionary and beautiful and support us in a better future, but it is definitely relying on partnerships. No stakeholder, no country can really understand and make, let's say, reality the targets on its own in order to make a circularity, to achieve a circularity approach. Before we go to the very interesting panel, may I kindly ask you to provide me with your input in this last question. So in your area of work, again, whatever that be, national, regional, local level, sectoral, your business, your association, do you think that decisions on greening VET should focus on developing a strategy for greening VET in general, implementing greening, let's say, transversally across types, levels? Wow, there's a lot. May I see your inputs, please? Yes, I would welcome more. This is so interesting, and I think it will be very, very informative for our panelists. VET teachers and trainers, now it's the first one. It's definitely, absolutely, it can be considered one of the core elements. There is no right and wrong, if I may say. They're all equally important. It's just a matter of perspective, a matter of priorities, and also the state of play in each area of work where you operate. So I see that thank you so much for your incoming votes. I see that skills for VET teachers and trainers is considered the most important one, having very closely a comprehensive strategy for greening VET. So let's say developing first an umbrella under how to green and whom to affect. And again, as third one, a bit lower, how to implement greening across VET types and levels. So maybe we can say that for the ones that you kindly voted, it is very important to have a strategy for understanding greening of VETs overall, greening all types and forms of VETs and levels, and at the core, as a first start, focus on VET teachers and trainers. So now in our panel, several of these elements will be discussed. As said at the beginning, we are still learning, and we'll be happy to learn more from you. Thank you for voting again. Thank you for your time. And again, please visit Cedefop Green Observatory if you need more information. Jasper, the floor to you.
Thanks very much, Stalina. And maybe before we leave you, we had a couple of questions in the chat. I think two of them we can take because they're relatively, focused questions. So the first question that came from the audience is, maybe put back your camera. Great, there you are. Are there any green skills for special needs students? People say people with mild mental disabilities or autism. Can you reflect a little bit on that?
This is a very interesting question. It's an area that we have not focused on, at least not yet. But our colleagues focusing on guidance and validation have done work on disabled workers and learners. I can gladly share with you the relevant link, and you may look into their additional information. You can contact them. But it's an area also possibly for consideration. You're right, in order to make the transition inclusive. Absolutely.
Yeah, and then there's a second question which came from someone from outside the EU. The person is asking, can someone from outside the EU benefit from green transition initiatives in the EU?
I'm under the impression that the question regards possibly EU, if it's EU funding.
Initiatives, the Green Deal, all these programs that we have, in the EU. Are they inspirational, for instance, for people outside?
I would say that it's definitely inspirational, and definitely there are differences in starting points and approaches, but also within the EU, it's 27 countries, it's 27 sometimes different realities. So there are definitely common denominators that a policymaker, stakeholder can draw inspiration from and guidance. But there may be even under some EU funds, some collaboration proposals with third countries. I'm not an expert in that. You will have to search into. But it's definitely, it is a global issue. And although the EU has the target of becoming the first net zero continent, it cannot do it without allies, without its neighbors, without understanding and supporting the rest of the world.
Thanks a lot, and I think we keep it at that. If in case there's additional questions, we'll get back to you later, because in these virtual get-togethers we have a bit of a ticking clock. We want to keep it short and sweet. Just before we start with the panel, I would just like to say that we really appreciate that many people are sharing resources in the chat. At Cedefop, we really appreciate learning from practice. So thank you very much for that. We'll look into it after the meeting. The final part of this virtual get-together is the roundtable, and in this roundtable we would like to talk about different approaches to make VET greener and also the opportunities and challenges they entail. And I'm here with my colleague Anastasia Puliu, and we will actually be taking turns in moderating this roundtable. Anastasia is a Cedefop expert, and she works extensively on qualifications, qualification frameworks, and also micro-credentials, and she's also heavily involved in our project on the future of VET. Let's start by taking a quick tour de table of our panelists. So I would like to introduce our panelists that we have with us today. First, we have Matti Iso-Kallio. He's director of the regional VET provider Sataedo in Finland. And we'll talk to him about the development program for the sustainable development and green transition of VET in Finland. We also have with us Mary Lyons. Mary is Director of Enterprise, Employees and Skills at SOLAS, the Further Education and Training Authority in Ireland. And with her, we'll talk a little bit about the green micro-credentials and the potential they have in making greening happen. Third, we have Kurt Schmidt. Kurt Schmidt is senior researcher at the Research Institute IBW in Austria. With Kurt, we'll talk about green apprenticeships. And then last but certainly not least, we have Nargis Ben Moussa. Nargis is a project officer at Alliance Ville Emploi in France. She represents this alliance in the working group of ONEMEV. And ONEMEV, for those of you who don't know, this is the French Observatory of Jobs and Occupations in the Green Economy. So first of all, welcome everyone, and thank you very much for taking part in this roundtable. Hello, Anastasia. It's going to be not just Anastasia and me asking the questions. We will also have questions between the panelists in the roundtable. I would like to start with the first question, and that one is to Matti. So in Finland, you have launched the development program of sustainable development and green transition in vocational education and training. Could you say a little bit more about what are the key features of the program in terms of making VET greener? Matti, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Great to be here. And about this program, it's financed by the Ministry of Education. It's targeted on the VET training. It's 2 years program. It just ended in less than a month ago. It covers more than 80% of all VET students of Finland, and results are for all VET institutions. even we have about 140 VET institutions, more than 60 participated on the program. I think the main feature is that our approach was very holistic. It covers different aspects, and the objective of the sustainable roadmap, as I mentioned, as a list, leadership and operating culture, pedagogical solutions and learning environment, personal competence and professional identity, partnership and carbon neutrality. And I think it was a good approach that it covers it all, and therefore not only what happens in the VET institutions, but also what happens on the other society where we are, because we are situated in different parts of Finland, what's happening on working life. And I think this approach also make it easier for us to support companies and persons to have the skills and competencies on a green much faster way compared that only our graduates, when our students, when they graduate, move to the working life. And I think because of this, that typically VET providers are very close connection on the companies, on the area. There is workplace learning, apprenticeship training, other development of the companies. So therefore, I think this green transition is easy to include on our cooperation on the area. And maybe just to mention about this personal development and according to my understanding, I think that now school leaders, principals are very well aware what is happening, what is needed. But in practice, we have still some variations that how good or well we have updated ourselves, how good or well we have updated the skills and knowledge of our teachers.
All right. That's great. Thank you very much for this input. And now I would like to ask another question to another panelist. That would be Mary Lyons. So Mary, as you know, Cedefop has been working extensively on the area of micro-credentials. So back to you. I think Ireland is a very good case example. It is actually considered one of the pioneers in the introduction of micro-credentials. So could you please share with us the developments on the topic, particularly focusing on green occupations and skill sets, of course. And could you possibly start by explaining how you started building what you consider micro-qualifications in your context, please? So the floor is yours now.
Hello, everyone. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you very much, Anastasia, for that question. Yes, in Ireland, we have both in higher education and in further education training, we have set ourselves to be leaders in this area in terms of providing micro-learning opportunities for our learners in Ireland. So in 2021, in the area of further education and training where I work with SOLAS, which is the National Authority for Further Education and Training. So myself and my team who work on enterprise, employees and skills, we set up a national initiative, and our objective was to develop a model so that we could apply the whole concept of micro-qualifications to any sector or occupation. And also we coined that term, as you said, Anastasia, of micro-qualifications, because we are focusing at level 5 and 6 of the National Qualification Framework, which is, above the leaving certificate level and pre-university. So we wanted to focus our offer on those who work in lower skilled jobs. And therefore we understood from working with them that a qualification is very important. That even though the courses we were going to develop were going to be very short, they had to have value for the employer and the employee, and therefore they had to be recognised and nationally and internationally certified. So that's the reason we're using that term of micro-qualifications. So we identified the whole area of sustainability and green skills as a priority, not surprisingly, given all the focus in this area nationally and internationally. And we set out a very structured approach to this investigation of what the needs were. So we did, my team carried out desk research on existing provision. We didn't want to duplicate what was already available in further education training and the wider context in Ireland. We then carried out a review of green occupations and skills using national and international reports and data. And we carried out then meetings with our providers, with the 16 education and training boards, which are funded by SOLAS, my organisation, and which actually provide the upskilling training right across Ireland. And from them, we gathered local intelligence, and we also won their support and collaboration for this quite demanding initiative, really, because it was going to involve a lot of collaboration, a lot of meetings, a lot of work on the part of the stakeholders. We then carried out online surveys of employers working with those education training boards. So now we had national data and regional local data. Then we assembled a whole grouping of stakeholders, including agencies working in the area of energy, water, as well as the sectoral enterprise representative bodies, and the major enterprise agencies in Ireland. So we had quite a collection of people working with ourselves and with the ETBs. And of course, a major stakeholder was also our Quality and Qualifications Authority, who was very supportive and helpful in our approach to the development of these short courses, but they would still have valid certification on our national qualifications framework. So we progressed, and we have an established structure for working across multiple partners. So we set up an overall steering group, and then we had a program development group to actually work on the curriculum for the programs. And then we had a promotions group looking at how we could promote the offer to employers, because one of the key challenges is making employers aware that green is a priority and that we have provision available for them in further education training, and also then encouraging employees to partake in the training opportunities. So we had 3 groups there, which we managed over a period of 2 years, focusing on a gap we had identified from all this research work at all the different levels, which were the fact that we had specific courses available, mainly higher level courses in the green sustainability area, but there was a gap in relation to cross-occupational and sectoral training. And also the areas identified were resource efficiency, reducing carbon footprint, procurement supply chain, and the circular economy, which you've mentioned extensively, Strelina has mentioned in the previous talk. So then we got agreement on what our focus was going to be, and we've now, 2.5 years later, we launched a suite of 24 micro-qualifications in the digital, robotics, aquafarming, business development areas. And that suite includes 6 micro-qualifications, which are about 50 hours duration, 25 hours with a tutor, either online or blended or face-to-face, and the other 25 hours focused on work projects.
Wow.
That's where we are now.
Yeah, and Mary, if I may come in as Anastasia, if you let me, very fascinating and really insightful to understand also the process. Now, as a last quick question about this part about micro credentials, do you already have insights or data on how the labor market is reacting to this new green micro qualifications? I'd be interested to learn more.
Yes, we're very pleased to tell you that even though we only launched the first 3 of those green micro qualifications in Q3 of last year, we now have over 1,400 people participating. Mm-hmm. And we are getting in fact, we've made some videos recounting their experiences. And from the employer, the feedback is that there are cost savings being achieved, increased productivity, and new processes, particularly in the supply chain, which is increasing competitiveness and reduction of carbon footprint in particular. And then from the employee, we're getting the reaction that their confidence is enhanced because these courses are very accessible. They're very short, so they don't interfere with personal family commitments. They are highly subsidised, through a national training fund, and they also are inspired now to continue. And having done the first 50-hour course, they're inspired to continue to take other micro qualifications to add to their portfolio of skills and increase their employability and to retain their employment as well.
So very positive.
Very positive, yes.
Anastasia, please.
Yes, right. Just so another panelist turning on his camera. Thank you, actually, Kurt, because I was thinking maybe you would have a question to Mary rather than us, me and Jasper, playing this role. So, Kurt, any question on that part?
Yeah. Hi, Mary. Thanks very much for explaining your approach, and it was very interesting for us, especially coming from a country with a strong tradition in apprenticeship training, and that kind of IVAT approach very much has to do with the occupational concept. So my question would go in the direction, did you see a potential and or limits with micro-credential when it comes to initial VET? So I guess, or might it be that just, let's say it provocative, just simply adding some green skills to an occupation or to a program, is it enough? Or isn't there some need or some change for the whole composition of an occupational profile or a program?
Yes, that's a really pertinent question, I think, Kurt. And what we found is that particularly the qualifications we developed in sustainability awareness are being added on to apprenticeship curricula at the moment, by education training boards across the country. So that's kind of an interim response, but absolutely, based on what Strelina was talking about earlier, there's a need to reinvent our further education training curricula and our approaches. So there is the opportunity there to redesign apprenticeships, but as we know, that's a very taxing undertaking because of the duration of the training and the fact that many of the technologies are now changing rapidly. So I think that is very much a consideration now in Ireland when reviewing curricula, which is an ongoing process for the different areas of skills, and it has to be really integrated into the whole curriculum design approach to be successful.
Great. I think when we heard Mary saying earlier and describing actually the way they were actually collecting this, what we sometimes call at Cedefop green skills intelligence, and then also all the efforts to interpret it in the right way really played a major role in developing the micro qualifications in Ireland. Now, the next question is for Najis Ben Moussa, and we would like to follow up a little bit on this. We know that France has quite a long tradition of skills anticipation focused on the green transition. So could you explain to our viewers how the National Observatory for Jobs and Occupations of the Green Economy, or as you call it, ONMF, collects data on the impact of transition on jobs and skills?
Yes, thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here to represent NMF. Just for example, a quick presentation of NMF. It has been created in by the Ministry of Environment. It's a neutral actually entity for dialogue or work that produces methodologies to reinforce the knowledge about the green the jobs and occupation in green economy. Regarding the collection of data, it's very important to know that the ONMF actually brings a lot of institutions with national vocation regarding the job occupations, employment, statistics, environmental issues, etc. So in its members, they have a quiet source of information, which means that they collect data to produce methods to define first the scope of the green economy and the green jobs, etc. That's the first thing, and then afterwards we try to quantify and to do statistically observation of the activities and jobs to the labor market and training, and which is all the sort of things related to the green economy. And then the thing is that we try to capitalize on studies on employment, ecological transition, which are produced by the whole institutions and actors and stakeholders who are involved in this dynamic. And then we try to modelize the monitoring and evaluation of microeconomic and sectorial impacts of the green economy. I'm trying not to be very technical because all this whole process is quite long, as we use also two different approaches, which are approaches which are focused on quantification of employment in the green economy activities, and then the quantification of proficiency of active individuals. If you need more information about that, I can provide it. I will be very happy to provide that. But the thing is, those methodologies can actually give more inputs on how we identify the green and green imperfections, and how we actually cross the whole data we have in terms of repository of operational jobs, the production of socioeconomic professions, etc. So we try really to cross everything and see if we have limitation, and so we can improve the whole methodology, and also quantify all of this. But just as a last point, ONIMEV has an online data source capitalizing all the information or resources, different type of resources, infographies, etc., which has been produced by French actors during the last few years regarding employment, job skills in the green economy.
Okay, thanks a lot. I think, especially thanks also for pointing out that last thing. I think is really, when we were looking at your website, you have over 250 initiatives in this database. I think is really a gold mine of intelligence that can be useful in many different places. Anastasia?
Yes, exactly. I would agree with you, Jasper. And I think the information shared with us by Narcisa is very relevant. And I think that, yeah, indeed, to meet the demand for people in green employment is vital that education and training systems in the end provide the right programs. So for this reason, I think Austria is a very good case example, and because of course they have a strong experience in green apprenticeships in particular. So that brings me to another question to Kurt Schmidt. So Kurt, can you also elaborate a bit on how your, the particular efforts you are currently making to ensure that green updates in apprenticeship curricula are mainly relevant to labor market needs? So please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Anastasia. Basically, I could be very brief with that point, because I would say we do it, let's say, in the normal procedure of updating or creating apprenticeship occupations. So that's nothing new essentially about it. It's a more or less constant or permanent process in all occupations. And now the greening topic is high on the agenda. And what we have done so far, or just to explain it a little bit, how we do the process is that basically on the governance level, there's a decision if for a certain apprenticeship of occupation, there's a need for updating. So the social partners sit together and decide about that. And the impulse usually comes either from the companies themselves, branches, more dynamic companies, bigger ones, things like that, to say that we need there some changes because qualification demand is changing. Or it can also come from the employee side, let's say the Chamber of Labor. So the impulse can be come from the social partners. And when both social partners agree, well, we have to look at that again. If there's changes needed, then usually an organization where I work is commissioned to look deeper into that topic. And we start basically to have a look again at the occupational profile. Is it still fit enough? And we are not experts in training. So, we have 250 apprenticeship occupations. So we are not experts in all these occupations. There we need the experts from the labor market, from the companies. The workers, the experienced, skilled workers, to give us feedback, to give us input, how their tasks change. And what does that mean for changing competencies, the needs for changing competencies? And based on that, that's again, let's say, put forward to this advisory board of the social partners. And when they say, okay, there's a need for a thorough overhaul of the occupation, then we continue. And then usually with a kind of a new occupational profile, then we go in the direction of to change the training regulation, and there's a change in the curriculum for the part-time vocational school. So there's a whole bundle. And what we have done so far, I would say, well, what's the outcome of the last years with respect to greening? I would say on the one level, there's now in all apprenticeship occupations some kind of transversal or common content that has been added, and that has very much to do, on the one hand, with what does it mean for the training for the apprentice dealing at the workplace in the training company with green topics. So how to avoid waste, how to deal with energy, things like that on a very concrete level. Similar on the school side, also the curriculum is touching that topic more, I would say, on a more, let's say, theoretical or general level. What's about sustainability? What's about greening, climate change? Topics like that. So there's a kind of transversal, like Stelina labeled it. Second, for the real, let's say, occupational profile or the training, what's going on, that very much depends on the occupation. You have occupation that are, in the words of Stelina, low greening, low intensity. Of course, there only minor changes are needed. You have occupations, there's a thorough change of greening, then a lot of things have changed. One approach is, for example, to add specialized modules like ecotechnique for the installation profession, or to add some additional competency at the list of the position that has to be trained. And third, yes, there's something like new green apprenticeships. One can discuss if these are really green apprenticeships. It's just a kind of a labeling, I would say, because for one is solar technician, but it's a very technical occupation. Another is bicycle mechatronic. Yeah, it has the label green, but it's, let's say, it's a mechanic for a specific vehicle. So there's much in common to other approaches, but it has now the green label. So I would say essentially these are the approaches we apply, basically in the process of the normal updating and creating new apprenticeship occupations.
Yeah, I think you actually replied in a very comprehensive way, not at all brief, but mainly to the point. And I also highlighted the important role of social partners there, Coach. Thank you for that. Now, Jasper, the floor is back to you.
Yeah, I think great to hear, and I would like to thank already all the speakers for this first round of where we learned about the initiatives. Now, in the second round, what we want to do is, after hearing about successes and achievements, to dig a little bit deeper into challenges, but also possible emerging or untapped opportunities. And I would like to come back first to Mati. Now, we know that in any VET or skills measure or project, a key challenge is always to promote lasting change. So in your program of sustainable development and green transition in vocational education and training in Finland, it's actually one of the stated objectives of the programs is to bring about permanent changes among all VET providers. Now, how do you safeguard the longevity of the program? I mean, how do you, in other words, promote that VET programs in Finland continue to become greener in the long run?
Thank you. I think there's a couple of different aspects how we try to do it. One part, and I think the main part of the solution is that we have a national level VET curricula for different programs, which all VET institutions must follow. That will guarantee that all students will receive studies in green in different field of study. And each curricula had at least one course on green, most of more, and of course the green skills are integrated as a new content on courses when the curriculums are updated. And also I think the second aspect is that pressure from working life is very strong, at least in Finland. For companies in open market, it's a huge competitive advantage to have green skills, are able to use them and when they are doing their business to survive on the future. And I'd also like to mention this corporate sustainable reporting directive, which covers private sector step by step. So they must report what they are doing, and to be able to report and act green, they have to have the skills. So I think this is also a very strong part. And also one I like to also add here is that we Finns are updating our national quality assurance framework in a national level. It's not a final or formal decision yet made, but I hope and I think that one option is to include sustainability also in the national quality assurance framework. We Finns, as other member states, follow, of course, the European ECAVET in our national quality assurance. And I think if we put also on the quality aspect and on the on quality also on to guarantee. So therefore we will have curricula, we have the pressure from the private companies, we have this national quality assurance, and also like to mention that we have very good support and guidance from the Ministry of Education to VET providers in political and practical level, and also from the Finnish National Agency for Education, which is the agency under the Ministry of Education, and they are in charge of updating curricula. So I think these are the main factors for us to guarantee.
Well, I think that's a very interesting reply, Mari, because you're actually referring a lot to the national VET curriculum, and for me, this is a very interesting area. So I wanted a bit, just if you very briefly elaborate more on why, for instance, your national VET curricula would contribute to greening in the long run, because we talk about sustainability, really the longevity of programs, and perhaps just consider if there is any process of renewing this curricula, organized, so these are, let's say, would be interesting for us to hear. These are relevant points.
All programs are coordinated to updating the curricula by this Finnish National Agency, but they are not done every year, but they are there's a certain year state that they are valid, and then they are updated. And Finnish National Agency is in charge of this process. And they are not doing it alone. There are several stakeholders included on the process, meaning they are representative from the VET institutions, from the working life, from the other relevant stakeholders. So I think there's a lot of different voices are heard when we are doing this, and it depends on what. In which programs the curricula is updated. It can be this year, next year, or some years from now. So I think this is one of the main aspect that I like to emphasize on how we are doing it in Finland.
Wow, great, thank you.
Great explanation. Any of the other panelists would like to reflect on or ask a question to Matti to go a little bit deeper? Because I mean, as I said at the start, we're talking also about challenges and how how they can be overcome. Mary, I see you.
Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you. I'd like to ask Matti how he what challenges you encountered and how you address them. Also, if you give us a few examples of that, that would be really helpful and interesting. Thank you, Matti.
Thank you. I recognize two main challenges what we are facing. That there's roughly 140 vet providers in Finland, and we are really in different phases when we are making this green transition. There are very top institutions on the green. Some are just taking the first steps or have taken the first steps in a couple of years. I think this is something that we really must support those who have the longest way to reach the green future. Another issue that all programs, as I mentioned earlier, must shift to the green. Thanks to this national level curricula, we are able to making this possible, but how easy it is to implement and to take in account on the national on a separate vet institutions. I think this is really the challenge that and we must take care of the teachers' development, personal development, to make it a living instrument. Not only that it's on the paper green, but it's also in reality it's green. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Now that we have Mary with her camera on, I would like you please to remain a bit more. And since, Mary, before you talked about this very important experience of yours in Ireland with micro-qualifications, of course, we are very aware that Ireland has certainly had a very positive, let's say, experience in implementing, let's say, this greening aspect in those qualifications. But I would think that success somehow requires overcoming some hurdles, some obstacles. So could you please tell me what are some of the challenges you have encountered when developing and putting in place those micro-qualifications that you mentioned? And for us, I mean, this is a very important area, not only for the current virtual get-together, but also for Cedefop's research on the topic on micro-credentials. So I would be eager to hear what you say.
Yes, so I suppose the first challenge, which we've all mentioned, is the need to collect evidence or data of the changing needs, perceptions of employers as to priorities, to find out how further education training can intervene and support best. So as you saw, we went through a very iterative process at every stage of gathering data on needs, on current provision, on agency perceptions, on employer perceptions. So what we found as a great solution to that challenge was really the use of technology, particularly, Teams calls, online surveys. So really technology, because of its rapid growth in usage during COVID, which spanned some of the period of this project, it really helped us to speed up, to become more efficient, to become more effective, and it definitely narrowed the response times, in terms of getting intelligence shared by the various collaborators. So I think that was a really helpful solution for us. Another key challenge is the trying to encourage employers to take up these opportunities. After all the work that's gone into developing them with their assistance, inevitably the day-to-day exigencies of production work, service work, overtake the wish to put employees forward for upskilling opportunities. So we address that, as I said, in the model in terms of making it a particular offer, 50 hours, broken down 25. And also we addressed accessibility. So we made sure that all the programs were could be delivered in person, online, or blended when we were submitting them for validation. So that required extra effort because we had to demonstrate that they would be viable in blended and online format. And we have then the challenge of ensuring that we have tutors available to deliver these programs. So we developed training of tutors, short programs for tutors who had qualifications relevant to environmental education and training. And we gave the kind of short inputs to upskill them in the particular micro training offers we were developing. And then we kind of have launched a wider initiative to encourage our education and training boards to hone in on the requirements of tutors that they may contract with to ensure that they are credible to employers and that they have the necessary background in the functional areas as well as in sustainability. So that's an ongoing piece of work that we're doing with the education training boards to ensure that the training is of high quality. We also put in a phase where we developed resources for each of the training opportunities, each of the micro qualifications, because we wanted to ensure consistent delivery across the country. So we were trying to control for the variability in tutors by ensuring that we had consistent high quality resources available for each of the micro qualifications we had developed. Yeah. So those were our countermeasures.
Wonderful. And I think from the very beginning, the fact that you mentioned this need on collecting evidence and data is really a recurrent one and definitely worth reflecting on. Thank you. Now the floor is back to Jasper.
Yeah. I think you explained very well. That actually encouraging employers to to think in a different way is requires effort. It's sometimes maybe hard work. Now I was wondering. Thinking about the experience in Austria, and I come back to Kurt, do you see something similar from your experience in Austria? In other words, do Austrian companies always see the value of greening their apprenticeship training? What's your view?
It's a difficult question. It's really very hard to assess it, but I would say the basic idea of our approach of dual VET is really these close connects between the qualification demand and the qualification supply. And at least we hope, let's put it that way, we hope that with that approach, as greening is becoming a topic, greening is becoming an option for delivering products. With that kind of close connections, that also the companies put more effort and foster greening also in their providing of greening in training. And what, for example, we do as an institute, and that's not special with greening, but it also greening now is a topic in it. We provide training guidelines, for example, because one thing is to make a kind of regulation, training regulation, and to put specific skills or competencies into the design. The other thing is that companies have to apply that or to how to implement training regulation in the real work process of their company. So, and with that kind of training guidelines, we try to support or give something to the companies, and it's a kind of a best practice examples, ideas, options to assist companies to also put more emphasis on the greening of their training.
Hearing could now exactly referring to companies, how you are trying to support and assist companies in that respect. Could I also ask whether companies themselves would put an additional effort or investment in training for the green transition, meaning that would incentives help or, in that case, be needed? Could you please elaborate on that?
I think on the one hand, I'm a little bit always hesitant when it comes to financial incentives to trigger or to motivate for some behavioral change. And we usually do not do it in Austria. But what we do when it comes to incentives for companies, it's more on a more general approach. Let's say, Austrian policy is more focused on subsidizing the product demand by itself. For example, we have kind of investment subsidies and tax allowances if households or companies invest in greening. Let's say some better heating, changing to renewable energy, e-mobility, buying e-cars. So things like that. And the idea is, if the demand side is popping up, then of course companies are interested to make a business there. Mm-hmm. Consequently, there will be employment opportunities for green jobs, and consequently there will be the training need also for these green jobs. So by that kind of cascade, I would say we in Austria try to bring in at the end of the day greening into the companies, and by that way, by subsidizing or giving some kind of incentives on the products on the demand side, in the long run, that should trickle down, so to say, also to the training provision.
Mm-hmm. Great. So the two keywords I hear from you is subsidizing and giving incentives. Can be financial, but in general, incentivizing companies. Wonderful. Good. Now I would like to see if any of our panelists would like to ask you a question. Maybe if I can also. There she is. I was thinking about you, Narcisse. So thank you for turning on your camera and unmuting yourself. Perhaps you can also address a question to Kurt.
Thank you, Anastasia. My question to Kurt would be about how the apprenticeship system would continue meeting the needs of the green economy, knowing that the market is very changing and evolving, and how does Austria actually ensure that apprenticeships remain flexible regarding the needs of the the emergent needs in terms of sustainability and environmental stewardship? Thank you.
Oh, difficult question. And in a way, again, I would say we do it along the usual approach. And I would say probably this has two dimensions. One is a kind of a governance dimension, and the other one is a kind of a design dimension. With government dimension, I would say that, well, when there's request from the labor market, then it's up to the stakeholders involved to react properly and to react fast. So this whole process of seeing the demand from the companies, from the employees, and to bring it into that process of let's say occupational profile development and training regulation development, that's essential. And the faster this process is going on, the closer and the faster the whole system can respond to changing needs. That's one approach. And the second dimension, which I would call kind of design dimension, that has very much to do how the occupational profiles look like and how the training regulation look like. So we have basically, we do it in a competency-based mode. So there's nothing inside that regulates which kind of technology is applied by the companies and things like that. So the companies, it's up to the company itself to react accordingly. So, and what the design can is to have this kind of, or to allow for this kind of freedom. And with, I would say, with these kind of two dimensions or two approaches, we hope that that will be enough, or will be a proper design also in times of rather changing demands.
Yeah, great. I think you clearly picture how these challenges of participation, involvement, how you try to solve that in Austria now. Of course, participation, buy-in of companies and learners is just part of a wider set of challenges that must be overcome to to turn the knowledge that we have from the labor market about the greening needs into action. And by action, we mean VET programs, learning and skills, ultimately. So I would like to come back to Narjis to get her perspective on this. Now, actually, it's one of the biggest challenges is to make the translation from skills anticipation to translate that data into actionable policies and policy implementation. So could you quickly, maybe because I see, you know, the clock is ticking, could you say how France achieves that? How do you shape those feedback?
Well, first of all, the UNIMEF has a space, a creative, like an open space, collaborative ecosystem where data is actually and actively discussed, refined, integrated within the reports and the reports of like different stakeholders, their strategic planning, including the development of policies, as we have a lot of institutions who are public entities. And also the engagement of diverse stakeholders ensures also a holistic approach and a very well-informed approach to skills anticipation, which makes it easier, between brackets, to put all the collected information into policy. So we have feedback from different institutions, and we try to put them into policies.
Great. Anastasia, do you want to follow up on this one?
Yeah, definitely. Actually, Narcissa, I wanted really, because I'm really interested in the practical side of things, right?
Yeah,
how do you actually achieve that? In other words, how do you overcome, let's say, any challenge you might be having related to ownership, relating to coordination in these kind of areas? So if you can tell me.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, sure. The UNIMEF is a place where actually we try to coordinate all the actions coming from different stakeholders, and stakeholders because we have like working groups, etc. And stakeholders mostly they would be like we don't have enough coordination when they are working like individually. And also the appropriation is sometimes difficult, but the informal groups actually provides a conducive environment to facilitate exchanges. And since a year or so, we have an environmental planning agency, a national one, which actually is broadening the audience and information sharing among stakeholders. They're also trying to help each ecosystem actor to take ownership and mobilize around the employment skills, and also try to mobilize local networks of local authorities, businesses, and citizens to be within the whole dynamic. So I don't know if it's actually responding to the question.
Perfect.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, because I'm thinking because Finland also has this national approach. Maybe Matti would like to go a little bit deeper into that. And Matti, I see you open your cam, so I'm expecting a question.
Yeah, thank you. Really interesting to hear what you are doing in France. But could I ask you that how your organization or initiative or other French initiatives help building a capacity and expertise in sectoral, regional, and or local stakeholders that they need to move forward on green? Thank you.
Yeah, sure. For example, like my organization, we are a network of local authorities who are involved in terms of employment, inclusion, etc. So, for example, our members who are local authorities, they are very demanding in terms of they are actually requesting more information and more dynamics within the green economy, because they're local authorities and they're receiving a lot of demands sometimes from SMEs and enterprises. Looking for I don't know, like a type of profile because shortage or labor shortage, etc. But it's like local things. So for example, us as a national network, we have a working group regarding competencies and skills within the green economy. We had like a partnership with ADEM, which is like the National Agency of Energy Transition. And the idea was to mobilize our members, see locally speaking what are the shortage in terms of labor, but related to sectors, sectors impacted by the green economy, by the green transition. For example, I don't know, in the north of France, for example, in Normandy, we will need more people working in eolian because of the local approach is making that possible, or the context. So it's very dependent on the specificities of each context. So we're trying really like to be there to support the local approach and include also the local level within the national works.
Great.
Great. I'm looking at the clock. I know that we've had some questions in the chat. And my feeling is that some of those questions have been partly answered, but not all of them. And what we will do, because we really want to end, at the time that we promised we would end, we'll pass those questions to the speakers and we'll get back to you individually. Now, we have 5 minutes left, and as in every virtual get-together, we do a quick wrap-up. And it's important, it's not a summary, this would be impossible, but it's basically a couple of key points that we think could be takeaways from this event. So when I think of possible takeaways, I mean, first, and this is a message that is a consistent Cedefop message, an important message is that the green transition as a megatrend is ultimately a skills transition. So we've seen that today through the examples that VET really has an enormous part to play in that transition, and that VET does that not just by providing skills for the sectors that are frontline in green transition, but also much more transversally. We also talked about green thinking, green acting, green doing, green living. A second point is, I think that's very important. We see that from the initiative we've seen today, but also from wider research that we've been doing, is that greening can be steered from EU and national levels. But in the end, regions, sectors, and cities, they need to take charge to make it happen. We know how that already works in some places, and I think there's enormous potential to use the good practices to make skills governance systems local, sectoral, regional, to make those ecosystems smarter, greener, and also ultimately fairer. Anastasia, what would you add?
Yeah, although your two key points or takeaways are very interesting, Yasmin, I would definitely agree with those. And from my side, I think, and also from the experiences we have listened to today from different countries, from France, Austria, Ireland, Finland, I mean, all of these experiences are giving us a specific signal. They are telling us that green transition is in essence hard work. And why I'm saying that? Because it takes determination, it takes a kind of a strategic thinking, time, appropriate time, resources, innovation, even I would say out of the box thinking, and many more things or aspects can be added here. So we definitely hope that this virtual get together can really inspire you somehow to get more involved, to become more aware of how powerful VET can be actually considered a very important trailblazer, let's say, of greening. So that is my first point, Jasper. And the second and very important one, because I will be referring to our house, Cedefop. Well, Cedefop will continue to be an ally in the green transition. And we know for sure that we cannot reach, let's say, the more individual level. We cannot really go and help countries and regions and sectors individually. But what we can really do and will, let's say, promise to do in the coming years is mainly to expand our green skills intelligence. We want to offer insights into how VET and skills policy implementation can actually support the different countries. So these are my two key points and takeaways from today's session, Jasper.
Great, thanks Anastasia, and also thanks to the whole audience that is with us from around Europe and beyond. This brings us to the end of this virtual get-together. So as I said at the start, continuous improvement is very important for Cedefop. So we would really like you to take 2 minutes of your time to fill out an evaluation form. We'll share that evaluation form in the chat. I see it's already in the chat, so you can do it right now. I would like to thank you, all the participants here, our panelists, our director, my colleagues Stelina and Anastasia, also colleagues behind the scenes, Beatrice, Ografia, and other Cedefop colleagues who are working jointly and as a team to make this virtual get-together possible. As an announcement, our next virtual get-together in the European Skills is in about 6 weeks from now. On March 11th, we will put Cedefop skills intelligence in the spotlight, and we will also use that as an opportunity to show how all our different types and products that we do in our skills intelligence work can be used to support the skills revolution. Registration is open, so you could register right now if you wanted to. That's it from Cedefop today. We wish you a good rest. Thanks very much for all your inputs, and we hope to see many of you again in one of our next virtual get-togethers or another Cedefop event. Goodbye.
Thank you very much.